So I think when most people hear about this situation, they understand the China part of it,
right,
because of the practices that China has implemented for a long time with regard to closing off its economy to foreigners.
Right.
But they're questioning your moves on aluminum and steel. Now, I know that you have incredible experience in this industry, having been a steel executive yourself for so many years. But Wilbur, did you make a mistake by coming out with the aluminum and steel trade tariffs first before the China action?
I don't think so, because they cover different things. As I said, the Chinese intellectual property rights activity is designed to protect the future. Steel, aluminum, autos are designed to protect the present. So look at the Korea deal. And I think in general, the way people should judge this president is by what he achieves, not by what they fear he might not be able to do. That's a very, very important thing, because they first said the economy couldn't grow more than 1.5% or 2%. Well, it is. They said he'd never get a big tax bill through. Well, he did. They said we would blow up the world if we put tariffs on Korea. Well, guess what? We made a deal with Korea. People have to judge by results, not fantasies.
But are you expecting, for example, a 25% tariff coming out of the European Union?
Well, we're in discussions with the European Union. I think you know I announced last week 2 joint communiques, one with the German trade minister, one subsequently with Ms. Malmström, the EC trade commissioner. We're making some progress there. We don't have a deal yet. We have a long ways to go, but it's much more constructive dialogue than we've ever had before.
I guess you would imagine that some of these countries are going to be hard-pressed to give up a $70 billion trade surplus with the U.S., which is what Germany has right now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Germany is a very major beneficiary of the trade situation.
What can you tell us about NAFTA? Is that sort of dead in the water until after the Mexican elections, Secretary?
No, I think Ambassador Lighthizer has some optimism that a transaction could be put together. The political calendar is very tricky there, because they have their presidential election beginning of July. Canada has their provincial elections in June. Our Trade Promotion Authority in the U.S. runs out in July. And then, of course, we have the midterm elections here in November. So as you move very far into this year, political calendar makes it very hard for something as big and as complex as NAFTA to get done.
So if, like, the lefty wins in Mexico, is NAFTA a dead deal, or what happens then? Do you have a plan B?
Well, they do have this matter to deal with. We do have a border between the 2 countries. They do have the other matter to deal with. They have a huge trade surplus with us. Since NAFTA was enacted, our cumulative trade deficit with Mexico is $1 trillion with a T.
Oh,
that's a big number.
Yeah, it sure is. Let me ask you about the Saudis. We just had the finance minister of Saudi Arabia here in the studio. You'll be attending a summit with him and business leaders and the Crown Prince, obviously His Highness. What can you tell us about the potential for growing the economic ties between the U.S. and Saudi? Why is that important to
Well,
you?
the ties are already very, very significant. U.S. is the largest single private direct investment in Saudi. It's some $45 billion. Saudi is around 11% dependent on us for their imports, and they're dependent about 11% on us for their exports. So it's a very important relationship, to say nothing of the geopolitical relationship that exists between Saudi and U.S.
And it certainly seems like that relationship is strengthening for sure. Let me get to your take on this census questionnaire, Secretary, because the Commerce Department, you're going to be bringing back this citizenship question to the 2020 census. Opponents are saying it's going to scare people away. It's basically going to have people scared to participate. It will impede the government's ability to get an accurate count. California's Attorney General is planning to sue the United States government over the move. What do you say? Why is this important to have that question on the census?
Well, the request was made by the Department of Justice quite a few months ago. And since then, we've been studying the programmatic, the economic, and all the other factors related to the question. Justice Department feels they need it so that they can enforce Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which protects minority voters. That's the genesis of the request for adding this question back in.
Do you think you're going to learn anything more, or will people get afraid and not even participate?
Well, there are people who are afraid and don't participate right now. The question is whether that will change, and if so, to what degree it'll change. We've heard from people on all sides of the equation. We've done elaborate analyses within the Census Department, and we've concluded that the benefits to the Voting Rights Act enforcement of asking the question outweighs these other issues.
All right, we will leave it there. Secretary Ross, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Nice to see you, Maria.
Thank you so much. Wilbur Ross.